I had waited and waited for someone else to stick up for us. A coach, a parent, an official, someone with political power, someone who was supposed to be protecting us, to protect us. But I remember the moment when it hit me that if we as women, we as female athletes, weren't willing to stick up for ourselves, how could we expect someone else to stick up for us? This has to come from us.
Legacy media will not talk about this. Recently, Lia Thomas banned from competing against women as swimming cracks down on trans athletes. This is something we have been advocating for some time. Going down on this article published by The Telegraph, Culture Secretary Nadine welcomes right and sensible decisions as pressure mounts on British governing bodies to follow Fina's lead.
Americans of all time, a two-time Olympic trial qualifier, SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, and SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. But all of that to say that it's a lifelong journey competing at that level, and it's impossible to put into words the amount of sacrifice and dedication that it takes. On March 17th of 2022, my teammates and I, as well as female swimmers from universities around the country, were forced to compete against biological male Lia Thomas. Thomas was allowed to compete in the women's division after competing as a member of the University of Pennsylvania's men's swim team for 3 years as Will Thomas. We watched on the side of the pool as Thomas swam to a national title in the 500 freestyle, beating out the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers in the country, including many Olympians and American record holders, by body lengths. Previously, Thomas had been ranked 462nd at best in the men's division the year prior. The next day, I raced Thomas in the 200 freestyle, which ended up in a tie. We went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second. Having only one trophy, the NCAA handed it to Thomas and told me I had to go home empty-handed. And when I asked why, which was a question they were not prepared to be asked, I actually appreciate their honesty because they said, Thomas, it was crucial Thomas had it for picture purposes. Thomas had to have it for the pictures. I felt betrayed. I felt belittled. I felt reduced to a photo op. But my feelings didn't matter. What mattered to the NCAA were the feelings of a biological male. In 1972, Congress enacted Title IX to end unjust sex discrimination in all aspects of education, including college athletics. But by allowing Thomas to displace female athletes in the pool and on the podium, the NCAA intentionally and explicitly discriminated on the basis of sex. Although the NCAA claimed it acted in the name of inclusion, its policies in fact excluded female athletes, which are the very female athletes whom Title IX was passed to protect. But that is not all. In addition to being forced to give up our awards and our titles and our opportunities, the NCAA forced me and my female swimmers to share a locker room with Thomas. A 6'4", 22-year-old male, a quick clear about this. We were not forewarned we would be sharing a locker room. No one asked for our consent, and we did not give our consent. And I'll set the scene. A swimming locker room is not a place of modesty. You're undressing, you're fully exposed, and we were forced to take off our swimsuit in front of a man who was doing the exact same thing. If nothing else, I truly hope how you can see this as a violation of our right to privacy and how some of us have felt uncomfortable, embarrassed, and even traumatized by this experience. I know that I don't speak for every single person who competed against Lia Thomas, but I know I speak for many because I saw the tears. I saw the tears from the 9th and 17th place finishers who missed out on being named an All-American by one place. And I can attest to the extreme.
Going down on this article published by The Telegraph, Culture Secretary Nadine welcomes right and sensible decisions as pressure mounts on British governing bodies to follow Fina's lead. British sport governing bodies are under mounting pressure to reform their policies after World Swimming banned trans athletes who reach male puberty from elite women's events. In a seismic move for Olympic sport, which will mean that American swimmer Lia Thomas can no longer compete in elite races, swimming rulemakers announced that trans women must now establish that they have not experienced any part of male puberty. Fina, World Swimming governing body, also announced plans to establish a new open category of competitions to include trans women that, according to President Hussein, will involve some of our biggest events. Trans men can still compete in the male swimming category, and a working group will report back within 6 months on how a new open category could work for women who transitions after puberty. The move was immediately endorsed by the British government, which want domestic sport governing bodies to collectively form new policies. British cycling has suspended its domestic trans inclusion policies pending a review, and the British swimming must now decide whether to follow the rules that Fina has outlined for international competitions. This is the right and sensible decision to take, said Nadine, the culture secretary. Fairness must always be the precedent over inclusion and should be unequivocal. Also important that trans women are able to compete in own class. This is a solution. Amos Salam said swimming new policies was based on real science and there is confidence it will prove robust against any legal challenge in being necessary and proportionate to achieve a legitimate objective. Our ally must come first. He said, of course, I understand why trans athletes would like to compete in a category of their choice. However, I have an obligation to every single one of our athlete. Equally, equality is also a key principle for us. This is why we are faced with such a delicate balancing act. We have to protect competitive fairness and also the past record and achievement, although the policy could have been passed just by Phoenix Executive Bureau. Endorsement was sought from national governing bodies at an extraordinary General Congress in Budapest ahead of the World Swimming Championship. This is the decision they have finally taken. I believe Rally Gain should be happy because she has been outspoken partaking to this for a very long time. If this is happening, it's just a beginning. They are now realizing the truth. This is actually hidden reality. When you want to talk about it, becomes a problem. So if they have taken up this decision to do this, that is the best. I encourage this. They should create sport different, where they can fit in with men. That would be preferable. Women can no longer break their record because of this insane decision they came up with. It is actually concerning, and I'm impressed to see that this is happening.